Sidewalk cafes, museums, monuments. Grand Paris is one of the most beautiful and picturesque cities in the world. But it hasn't always been this way. In the 17th century, they had a problem with finding a place to bury all of their dead. They were popping out of the graves. The cemeteries in Paris were spilling over. There were so many dead bodies were poking up out of the ground. During a heavy rain, the Cemetery of the Innocents, a wall collapsed, and all of these corpses went running down into the basements of people's homes. They realized they had to do something at that point. Looking for a solution to their crisis, they turned to the miles and miles of ancient chambers that had been dug under Paris when they were excavating limestone. Underneath the city of Paris are 200 miles of tunnels and catacombs that have turned into the largest cemetery in the world. I actually feel quite at home here. It reminds me of my old cave. All of this is about 60 feet underground, which means that the subway, the pipes, the metro, the sewer, it's all up above us. There are so many miles of caverns that they put a black line across the ceiling to guide the initial workers so they wouldn't get lost. One man did get lost, and he wasn't found until 11 years later. Once they approved moving the bodies into the catacombs, it took them 12 years to relocate the bones in the Parisian cemeteries. When they first began to use the catacombs to store the bones, the workers were just throwing them in haphazardly, but the bones kept sliding down and they were tripping over them. So they learned that there was a method of stacking them like cordwood, it's even artistic, to help keep the path clear and to keep the bones from spilling down into the walkway. Some of the workers became very creative, developing these artistic barrels of bones. 6 million Parisians are buried in this place. 200 miles of tunnels, it's now the largest cemetery in the world. Over the years, people have done some research to see if they could detect any paranormal activity here in these tombs. They've never come up with any evidence. The Bible's very clear that the living know they'll die, the dead don't know anything. Now, Jesus said the hour is coming in which God is going to bring all the bones back together and resurrect, but there'll be 2 different resurrections. He says all that are in the graves will hear his voice. They that have done good will come forth for the resurrection of life. They that have done evil, the resurrection of damnation. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, the Bible says God took the prophet and set him down in a valley, and the valley was full of bones, and it says they were very dry. Then God asked Ezekiel a question. He said, "Can these bones live again?" Ezekiel said, "Lord, you know." And the Lord told Ezekiel, "Prophesy unto the bones." And he obeyed. And as he prophesied and preached unto the bones, a great wind came through. The Spirit of God moved, and bone came together with bone until they rose up, and they were a great army. You might wonder sometimes, how can God raise me up if maybe a person is cremated or their bones all get separated? How can he put them back together again? You don't need to worry about it. The Bible says God is going to give you a new body.